Hey, race fans, Hall of Famer Darrell Waltrip here. You know it's time to drop the green flag on another edition of Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic. So, hey, pull those belts tight one more time. Here's my buddy Hermie Sadler and Senator Bill Stanley. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's see what they have to say, boys and girls.
I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley, and I'm leaning right.
And I'm former NASCAR driver and Spock.
Spox?
Yeah. I'm so eloquent. I'm Hermie Sadler, Fox Sports, former Fox Sports analyst and NASCAR driver.
Yeah.
How's that?
And you're turning left?
Obviously, I'm turning upside down.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've just stumbled into this is Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, and we're off to a great start. It's been a long day. It's Tuesday. It's 4. I just ran back from presenting bills. We had a long day in session that we were debating bills. We're getting to what we call crossover, and we've got 400 bills still in the committee hopper, and right now we're getting to the point where 3 days, we read them for 3 days in the old traditional way. I don't know how we're going to get it all in, but I know who we did get all in this episode. What number 4 of 2023, our mascot, our plus one, or will be Shep Mouse. Hi, Shep Mouse. You made it.
I did make it, yes.
He got it yesterday, actually.
So you
We're
got
still on that Eastern Stanley time, as I keep talking about.
This is legislative Eastern Stanley time, okay? I can do only what I can do. And when you get, like in P&E, they call it Privileges and Election Committee. When you get in a P&E committee, most of the stuff is where it really is partisan. And so first they love to go over their own bills and they drag them out. And so I sat there for an hour.
Oh, we know.
Yeah. And finally heard my bill only to watch it sail out with a pass by indefinitely, which means kill 9 to 5.
But it was with love.
Yeah. So did you watch it?
We had nothing else to do.
So we're over here high atop the Stanley Law Group skyscraper in the Stanley Law Group law firm at the Stanley Law Group studio, overlooking the capital of the Commonwealth, beautiful Richmond, Virginia. It's a rainy day, but we have a special guest here, an amazing special guest with a wealth of knowledge, probably one of the best writers I've ever read, a man that has his fingers on the pulse of all things Virginia and all areas Virginia, a great historian, journalist, editor-in-chief, Dwayne Yancey, former editor-in-chief of the Roanoke Times, now the head honcho of the Cardinal News. Is that right?
Yes.
Welcome.
I was editorial page jugger at the Roanoke Times.
Okay, well, so that's still it, isn't it?
Yeah.
In that editor-in-chief or no? So we've asked Dwayne in because if you read Cardinal News, go to cardinalnews.org.
.org.
And you'll see really just a whole new perspective, a fresh perspective on what is south of the James. What is south of the James River? What the real goings-on are in the rest of Virginia, as we like to say, outside of Northern Virginia. So welcome, Dwayne. It's a real pleasure and honor to have you here, brother.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
And you had to sit in here for an hour with these numbnuts. Did you learn anything, or did you realize that perhaps you made the wrong decision?
He got the whole lowdown on what's going on in South Hill.
Oh, really? Burn Pile Moss told him everything?
And he inspired me to get the heater going.
I noticed you got the heater going.
So we've got it up to 59 degrees.
It did not smoke? And when we turned it on last time, it smoked?
No.
Okay. Well, welcome. It's a little warmer than usual, and these guys look a little fatter than usual, so I think I'm in good
I'm
shape
down 4
there.
pounds on your scale.
Hey, turn around. I found them. They're right there. On this scale in here, you're down 4 pounds.
4 pounds.
Hey, want to say quickly before we get into the discussion, I spent most of the day with you earlier this morning.
You did.
In the Pocahontas building, also over in the Capitol. I came today in the capacity of a father of a child with autism. Mm-hmm. So today was Autism Advocacy Day. So my oldest daughter, Cora, came over with me to Richmond this morning, and we went around and spoke to many legislators about autism and programs and needs and services and things of that nature. And so then we went over to the Senate chamber, and you so eloquently introduced Cora and I to the Senate chamber. But what a great day. We had people representing the Autism Society of Virginia. The Tidewater region is the group that we were with going around the Pocahontas building. So, and we were joined by Mandy Calhoun.
Oh, yeah.
Who, Shep, you know very well from South Hill. So I want to thank you and all the legislators on both sides of the aisle that were open their doors to families and advocates and people that are speaking for, in some cases, the people that don't have the voice. And I felt very good that Cora and I were here to do that today, and it was a special day for Cora and I to be here together.
Well, and you guys, it's always great to have advocacy, especially citizens who come up and advocate a particular topic or subject matter. It makes us aware of bills that might be out there but not in front of us yet, that pertain to a certain issue that's near and dear to your hearts. And then sometimes what you remind us is we didn't do anything this year, and we need to. You know, I think we're looking at 500 more DD waivers to get goods and services to children with autism, but we've got to be more proactive. I think we just have to be willing to think outside the box. Maybe next year, if you win the Senate seat, we can think outside the box and create some interactive programs between the parents and our public schools to make sure that our children, when they are sent to our public schools who have autism or special needs, that they're not just warehoused, that they're taught and they're given the skills needed to be successful.
One of the most interesting things Cora said, because she's been kind of treading lightly on my foray into politics. But we got over here this morning, and she started out kind of like, because that Pocahontas building is very confusing.
Yes.
But the first office we sat down into and people started talking, the people with Autism Society of Virginia, the Tidewater region, started to have conversations with delegates and their aides about the lack of rooms in their facilities, lack of adult, teachers and mentors and all these, and how many people are on a waiting list talking about all these facilities. And Cora looked at me like in the second meeting and said, Dad, they're talking about lack of room in their facilities. We don't even have a facility.
Yeah.
So she looked at me and she said, that's one thing we need to work on. And so I thought, you know what, we can, you start to learn more about, in Tidewater area, there's a problem not having enough rooms and enough people and enough resources and enough mentors and enough therapists in the Tidewater region. But in where I live in the state, we don't even have a facility, especially for these adults as they get older and transition to adulthood. No, and we had one guy, sweet little boy named Reed. I'm gonna guess he's probably mid-20s. He had autism and Asperger's, and he had to move from the Richmond area to Norfolk, Virginia Beach area just to get services. And so he told that story.
Bill, of course, Hermie is over here today as a father, and that's something that all three of us are. But I want the people, especially the 17th district, to understand Hermie will bring, the same passion and the same energy to represent their needs and wishes as well as he's doing as a parent. And I just want to encourage everyone to go to saddlerforvirginia.com to find out how you can get a yard sign. I know Hermie is, you've got those in stock now. You're ready to release those.
Yeah.
And I just want to stress how important this movement is, not only for the 17th district, but when I share the post, I think Hermie has seen it. If it's good for Southside, it's good for everybody. And I think Hermie being over here in the Senate is good for everybody.
Well, I love Hermie, and this podcast, Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler in the Center, does not support or endorse any campaign or campaign committee. But we can certainly talk about your campaign. Yeah. And you've had a big week, Hermie. I mean, you've, in terms of state Senate exposure for a first-time candidate, I've seen you everywhere, and national TV, national news articles, and probably the most popular and well-listened to largest audience conservative radio talk show, The John Reed Show, like in a 3-day span. How did you hook that up?
I first got someone reached out to me from Fox News Digital, their online platform, and reached out to one of my campaign staff about doing a sit-down Zoom interview that would be posted only on their online platform. So I did that last week. The story posted, and the guy first of all sent an email and said, you know what, this is one of the most downloaded stories that we've had on this platform in about a year. He thought it was just interesting. So then 2 days later, and I don't know whether they talked behind the scenes, but one of the producers for America Reports the daily news show on Fox News with John Roberts and Sandra Smith. They reached out and said, "Hey, this is an interesting story. You're an interesting candidate. We don't see these types of things every day. Would you come on and be on the show?" So I thought we were driving actually to the Fox 35 studio here in Richmond. But as it turns out, Fox has a studio set up on the third floor over at the Pocahontas building.
Yeah.
So I went in.
Everybody saw you.
Yeah, I went in.
You were the
got to
talk
speak
of the
to a lot
town
of
when
people.
you went in there. People were mad on the other side, I guess, in your primary opponent,
Yeah.
that the interview was here at the
Yeah.
General Assembly session.
And I had, I don't want to exaggerate, 4 people that two I know okay, 2 I've just seen at different Republican committee meetings, either texted me or sent me Facebook messages that are running for different delegate races around the state and said, "Hey, who's your contact at Fox News? We'd like to get on."
You think?
Well, they used to be my boss. Yeah, well, that's pretty. I mean, it's pretty hot in the General Assembly session at the Pocahontas building. People are talking about it. They come up to me and go, "Did you see it?" And I'm like, he only sent me like 14 clips of it. I mean,
But I
look at all
did-
my texts from Hermie showing me all the
I
times she was
did
on the air.
2 things. I did try to bring attention to all of the Senate races coming up that are very
I thought
important.
you did that very
Yes.
Tried to give a shout out to the governor.
well. Thought you did that very well.
So, I was,
You even mentioned my name, so thank you.
yes. Well, I did. I mentioned your name on John Reed.
Right, but not on Fox.
Is that
Yeah.
when the camera cut off?
Yeah.
That's when
But
they-
it was a fun, good couple days. But, I'm sure there are some legislators probably in the Pocahontas building that are not ecstatic that I
little butt hurt.
That I
Little
did a-
butthurt. And chances are right now, if I was to guess, I'm sure their other side is probably contacting Fox and said, "We want equal time. We want equal time." But the real important part is that already you're bringing attention to the state election, which is happening in November.
National attention.
National attention to a state election, which usually does not receive that state election or that attention by the media, and especially not so early. So, how else is it going?
So far, so good. We're working towards a convention, which we don't even have the convention date yet as we sit here. Looks like it could be late May to early June. And you know how it is with my business. I do everything in my business is by percentages and by sales and all that. And so we've got a budget that we're working towards. We thought it was going to be, like May. Now we're trying to figure out how to move the budget into June and other things like that. So we're working on, how to spend our money wisely and do the right things wisely. But me personally, I'm making about 100 phone calls a day personally in the mornings. And then I'm knocking doors in the afternoons, probably 50 to 75 a day in the
For a
afternoon.
convention.
For a convention.
It's unorthodox, but probably very effective. You think you got 500 conventioneers signed up?
I prefer to keep that close to the vest.
600-700?
I prefer to keep that
All
close
right,
to the
all
vest.
right. Blink twice if it's over 1,000. One.
I will say this only that I think we are doing well, even in areas maybe that I thought there may be more resistance, but we've been doing well.
Bill, you got a phone, or Hermie, you got a phone call a little while ago talking about name recognition. And, just
Were you
to touch on
eavesdropping
that.
were you eavesdropping on my phone?
Well,
call?
I mean, I could hear you across the street when
He's not quiet.
But my point is, you had a conversation with somebody about name recognition. And to Bill's point, you get Fox News to put you on.
Yeah.
Now, if they really want to talk about name recognition and bringing a positive recognition to the state of Virginia and to Governor Youngkin, as you said, you mentioned him, what a better candidate than that? Who else going to pull that off?
Well, it's pretty good. Only, and I want to bring Dwayne Yancey, guru of politics, all Virginia, all the time, and see what his opinion is. But see, it's different. Like, when I was a first-time candidate, I guess what I brought to the table was I was a lawyer, so I was used to speaking to 12 people in a box. So speaking publicly wasn't that difficult. I'd also been a unit chairman, so you speak in front of people, you get them motivated. But a lot of first-time candidates really aren't that polished. And so Hermie's polished because, he was a news reporter, basically a sports reporter for Fox in the pits for NASCAR for years and years and years. Works well with sponsors, works well with fans, has that kind of style. He's natural. He's him. It's not fake. What you see on TV is Hermie Sadler. And so it's got a polish to it that I think most people don't have when they run the first time. What do you think about his chances when you look at the setup? It's a 51-49 district. It swings. It went, I think it went Joe Biden by 7. And
7 and Youngkin by 5.
Youngkin by 5. What are your thoughts there, Guru?
Well, I guess the question was getting past the convention.
True.
Yep.
True.
And conventions are unpredictable.
Yeah. And yeah, because there can be shenanigans and controlled.
I interviewed or talked last week to a former Democratic candidate for the House from a couple decades ago, and he had been seeking the Democratic nomination for the House of Delegates and thought he was going to win. He was in a convention until he said the buses started rolling up. And he said the first bus came from a nursing home, and he still felt okay. Then the second one showed up, and then the third. And then, of course, they were all for his opponent. So he knew then it was not going to be a good day.
So, Hermie, what he's telling you is you have to rent every tour bus in a 50-mile radius of Emporia to make sure that those buses can't roll in against you. Right?
That's right.
But you also got to rent them yourself. I mean, he brings up a good point, and you and I have talked about it. It's one thing to get a delegate, to go to a mass meeting, to be elected as a delegate, and then you got to get them from there to the next event, which is the convention itself. Then you have to worry about the rules. You have to worry about all this different kind of weird stuff. Conventions, that's why this is going to be the last year of conventions. We've outlawed them here in the General Assembly. So now it's just a primary run system of nominating by party for an elected office here. Isn't that amazing?
That is.
Yeah.
Because conventions have a long and somewhat controversial history.
Let's talk about your long and somewhat controversial history, Dwayne.
Step right into that one.
Yeah.
So Dwayne, when did you start? You know, you're a journalist, you're an editor. How'd you get into it? I mean, obviously you had a flair for writing early on, I'm sure.
I grew up on a farm in Rockingham County, and I tell people, sort of like Bob Dole once said about the vice presidency, that it was indoor work with no heavy lifting. And I decided at an early age that I was not cut out to be a farmer.
Okay.
So, journalism, my short answer is it seemed like, indoor work with no heavy lifting. I mean, the more serious answer is I was always the nerdy kid, in fourth grade reading the newspaper. Mm-hmm. And my original goal was to be a sports writer. I was never very good at sports, but loved sports, so that was a way to take part without being out on the field.
Yeah.
Sports and politics are a lot alike.
Oh, yeah. Well,
In what way?
bare knuckle blood sports, yeah.
Well, there's competition. At the end of the day, somebody wins, somebody loses. I mean, when I was at the Roanoke Times, we always gear up for election night. Election night in the newsroom was the best night of the year. And the sports writers always made fun of us because they said, we do that every Friday night during high school football. Nobody comes back and brings us pizza.
Right.
That's just, how we work.
Right. So did you always stay local? So you're born here in Virginia, raised here in Virginia,
Yeah.
you raised on a farm. You decide you want to go to journalism. Where'd you go to school to get that done?
Went to JMU.
Okay. And then from there, did you always work for the Roanoke Times, or?
I worked for about 2 years here in Richmond for a magazine that's long since gone out of business. Then went to the Roanoke Times in 1982 and was there until I walked out the door in August of 2021.
Wow. That's a long time, dude.
That is a long time.
So did I meet you at my first interview when I ran in the special election of Robert Hurt? Were you on the editorial board there?
No, I was not.
Okay.
I was not. I never had any desire. I'm not very opinionated. I was probably the least opinionated editorial page editor ever. But I just sort of fell into that job.
Well, I'm going to tell you, we sat around a long table, went up there, and I was with Greg Habib. Mm-hmm. And we got grilled, and I can't remember exactly who all was there, but we went in separately. And so Greg says to me, Greg's running to replace or to fill the last year of the seat of Morgan Griffith, who was elected to Congress. I'm running to fill the seat for the last year of Robert Hurt, who got elected for Congress. It's a fast-paced 1-month election, and they wanted us up there in the editorial board to determine who they would endorse. And so I went up there and got just hammered on this, and I'm against raising taxes to help children and all these kind of things. And I walk downstairs and I look at Greg Habib and I say, there is no way the Roanoke Times editorial board is endorsing me. And so we high-fived because, it's a kiss of death out my way, buddy. And then he goes up about 15 minutes, 20 minutes later. He comes down and his eyes are as big as silver dollars. And I said, what's the matter, Greg? He said, I think they might endorse me.
And they did for a while.
They did. The funny thing was, you remember, so the funny thing was, so they come out with the endorsements. They endorse my Democrat opponent in my race, and then they endorse Republican Greg Habib. And everybody in the Republican Party in the Roanoke County area in Salem go nuts about it. And he calls me up and says, what do I do? What do I do? And I said, well, why were they willing to endorse you? And it was because he would not sign the pledge not to raise taxes. And he says, what do I do? I said, you sign that damn pledge. And he went out.
Real easy.
Yeah, he went and he signed the pledge and made a big poo-poo about it. Was it, 2 days later?
They rescinded the endorsement.
I got a
And
question.
he won.
I got a question for you. Because we were talking briefly before the show. How it seems like to me, you've got to be a little bit of attorney. You've got to be a little bit investigator. You've got to be a little bit of a tough guy. Walk me through the process when you've got or you feel like you've got a big story. Walk me through the process of investigating that and getting that story factual on paper for the people to see.
Well, the details probably differ from story to story, but the main requirement of a good journalist is to be nosy and to be curious. When I'm hiring people, you can teach someone how to write. And you don't really have to be a flashy writer to be a journalist. You can't teach being curious. People are either curious or they're not. I don't know where that comes from. But, given my choice between a brilliant writer who's not curious and someone who's curious and isn't a good writer, take the curious person every time. So, you got to have someone who's, willing to ask embarrassing questions. For some people, that's the joy of being reporters. You get to ask, important people, questions that no person would ever, the senator's here smiling. He knows. He's been on the other side of that.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I got another Roanoke Times story about that, too. Yeah. And it without being obnoxious and being able then to just add on to handle, because, I respect journalists, reporters' questions. I try to create relationships I'm not going to lie to you. I'll tell you if I can't tell you something, but I'm not going to lie to you. I'll answer every question I possibly can. But then that reporter some reporters carry with them an air about them of, I'm going to crush you.
Well, I know who you're talking about.
And they actually kind of haughty, the way they pull themselves together or hold themselves out. But if you ask me a straight up question, even if it's embarrassing, well, if it's embarrassing, I probably did something to deserve the question. But otherwise, I'm going to give you a fair answer. Just, what I see a lot of politicians do is they get their noses out of joint, and so they won't talk to a reporter. I don't talk to him. Or when the reporter approaches, then they get not confrontational, but so defensive that the politician actually, by being defensive, hurts himself or herself, right? Over and over. And then that ego gets in the way. And they can make a real mess of themselves very quickly.
Wait a minute. Politician?
Yeah.
Ego?
Right. Some people do, yeah. I know.
Wow.
I know a couple.
She's shocked, I tell you.
Yeah.
Shocked.
Wow.
What's the matter with that?
I'll get in trouble by saying most of them are like from north of here.
Yeah. All the egomaniacs are definitely above the Mendoza line.
I live in Emporia, and we consider the line to be like Jarrett.
None out west.
No
egomaniacs out west.
No, there's no room to be an egomaniac out west. There really isn't. What are you going to do? I mean, nobody's going to listen.
No prima donnas.
Your neighbors are like a half a mile away, so you can't like prance around or do anything like.
I just got
me out.
I'll get in trouble for this too.
And most people are bigger than you.
Tickled. Listen to Bill. We got here early. You got here early. He was working. You were working. Had stuff to do. I get it. So you're blaming it on everybody else and all that. Like you don't have a propensity to be late because early today. my daughter and I and you and one of your staffers, we walked out of the Pocahontas building together to the walk to the Capitol together because you had 11:30 caucus. Mm-hmm. So 11:40.
Were you late?
11:40. He's standing right in the middle of Main Street. We're just talking. Everybody passes by. He's yakking. I'm like, Bill, you're 10 minutes late. And he's like, all right. So what it's like, what else we want to talk about?
He didn't want to go.
Well, it's always usually a packed calendar, and it always runs over because you want to. I make sure there's I see a lot of politicians. They won't even bring people into their office, or they won't meet with them because they're against them. So, just by way of an example, I had the union guys up on Monday, and they wanted to see elected officials. Now, I'm not going to agree. They had like 4 or 5 bills. I gave them okay, I'll look at that one, and I didn't agree with the other, but I had a great time talking to them. Some politicians won't even meet with them, or they'll meet with, I'm going to meet you outside in the hallway because you don't deserve to come into my office. I mean, what the hell? These people come up and advocate. I mean, I have Planned Parenthood people coming in and sitting down. I have VEA, As a Republican, I'm pro-life and I'm pro-school choice. And so we're not going to agree, but I want to hear about them. Most of the times they're from your area. And 3/4 of the times you walk out friends and shake hands, even if you disagree. And that's the good parts about politics. But there's that ego that says, well, if you're not just coming here to rub my butt and agree with me like a sycophant, then I'm not going to listen to you. But if I agree with you, I'll give you 2.5 minutes, and then I'll have my guy come in and go, all right, get out. I like to sit there and talk to them, especially when kids come in, talk to them, and that's the way you should do it.
Well, it's only important or relevant because of our text messages last night talking about the time of the recording and the upcoming schedule.
I was trying to accommodate Dwayne Yancey, famous editor and playwright.
I mean, we knew what it was going to be.
Yeah, but see, I didn't realize that today's docket, we've had nothing, Dwayne, but these small dockets because we're not getting any bills out. We're not doing a lot of work in these committees. And so, like I said, 400 and some odd bills bottled up in committees. We've got exactly 7 days, not seven calendar days from crossover. And for those that don't know, crossover is where we have to shut down the work where the Senate works on its own bills, the House works on its own bills. We have to pass them out of the committee or defeat them. And then we have to get them to the floor, go through the traditional 3 readings. And people say, well, why do you read them 3 times? Well, back in the day before they had electronics, they would read the bill 3 days in a row, and they would debate it and amend it, and that's how they did it because they didn't have iPads. We still keep that tradition, but it's usually a perfunctory kind of exercise. Still have the amending on the second reading, that kind of thing. Well, we're running out of days to do that. And have you ever been a part of that before when you've seen a bottleneck?
It seems to get worse every year.
Yeah,
is that right?
No,
that's my impression.
Upon reflection, I think you're exactly right. It is, and in this way, you've been covering the General Assembly for years and years and years. This year, at least in my mind, because of redistricting, has put, 61 seats together, potentially all these incumbents racing, either in Republican primaries, Democrat primaries, or the general election. Bubbling beneath the surface is some kind of, emotional attitude going on. I don't know that I could even describe it with a word. Perhaps you can. People not trusting people getting into their corners, their partisan corners, people always looking over their shoulder like somebody's out to get them, paranoia even. I've never seen that before, even though I came in on a redistricting year.
I don't think I can use that word here.
Which one? Redistricting?
No.
Or the word you described.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. But you've been watching politics throughout the years in Virginia. You report on it in Cardinal News with some very adroit editorials with a lot of history. What have you seen in terms of the transformation of Virginia politics at the state level?
That's a big question.
I know.
Yeah.
I figured I'd give you a big one there. Because you're sitting next to 2 big ones. We have a weight loss challenge, so
Yes.
we tease each other.
Well, clearly it seems to become more partisan.
Yeah.
I know it was always partisan, but in a different kind of way. I'll say a few good things first. I like politicians. Most politicians I know I like.
There are 3 at this table. It's a good answer.
I think most are decent people, whether I agree with them or not. I think their hearts are
2 are politicians, not me.
Oh, that's right.
a wannabe over here.
Yeah.
I'd rather be a wannabe.
And my impression is that many legislators in Richmond get along quite well with one another across party lines. I've seen that happen. And so I try to write about that whenever I have a good example of it, because I've written that I think the partisans ought to be more like the politicians.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that, though?
I think some of the partisans, they just hate each other. They just hate the other side, think they're the enemy. And that's no way to run a civil society. We're going to have an election. Somebody's going to win. Somebody's going to lose. But the next day we're all still going to be here.
Right.
And somehow we got to figure out how to get along. I do see, Richmond, starting to become a little more like Washington, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a good thing, but it is happening. I mean, we used to always boast, just a decade ago, we'll never do what happens across the Potomac River.
No, you might.
But we're doing it.
Do you think that pressure is coming from national politics? Because Virginia, this new 17th is going to put potentially so much pressure and can change really the national landscape. Do you think pressure is coming from across the Potomac field?
Dwayne, what do you think?
Yes. And to get to, sort of my soapbox, I think the decline of local media has something to do with that, not everything. But as local media declines, people are still hungry for news, so they're going to get their news nationally. So more and more things become nationalized. It used to be back in the day, and I sound like I'm old here, but it felt like more issues were regional in nature, and Democrats and Republicans would, work across party lines, and there were still some partisan things. And now it seems more and more, everything is, either D or R.
Yeah. Yeah, and we had a guy in here, political operative, who's saying there's a lot less down ballot shifting from R to D or D
Yes.
to R, and they're noticing in all these elections that people are drawing straight line. If it's a Republican they like, then it's a Republican all the way down the ballot. We're choosing party over person, it seems.
Yes, ticket splitting is almost a thing of the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No more ticket splitting means that we kind of then get in our corners and we don't get out too often.
Yeah.
Bill, you mentioned,
and then there's a litmus test for whether that politician is truly a conservative or truly a liberal. And the litmus test becomes even more ridiculous as the years go on, it seems.
Yeah. I knew in 2021, whoever won the governor's race, it was going to be a straight ticket one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, you mentioned earlier this morning something I hadn't really thought about because I've been focused, as we've talked about so much, on the 17th. But you said that the General Assembly, and especially the Senate, could see a number of new faces next year. So I'm curious how much changeover could we possibly see, and is there any chance that things may become more civil then, or will it go further down the partisan path?
No, what I see is a lot of Democrat on Democrat crime and Republican on Republican crime when it comes to these primaries. You've got potential Ryan McDougal, who's very well, caucus chair. He's running against, or is supposed to be running against, Tommy Norman, who is our minority leader. He's been there 30 years. Lots of institutional knowledge. Right now, you have the potential of Senator Mark Peake from Lynchburg, running against Senator Steve Newman, who has been there 30-some-odd years. Lots of institutional knowledge. You have Dick Saslow, who's announced he's not running. He's been there since the earth cooled. You've got Janet Howe, who's retiring. You've got Jill Vogel, just announced that she's retiring, and then you've got a lot of institutional knowledge. Someone who loves you very much, Senator Louise Lucas. She loves you, Hermie. By the way, she wanted me to tell you that again today, and so she just wanted to say that she loves you. But she's running against Lionel Spruill. Well, in each one of those matches, someone who's been there a while is going to go away. The risk is it may be the one with the institutional knowledge and the 30 years experience. It could be the person who's really worked hard but it doesn't have that institutional knowledge and experience. So when you start taking out those pieces, I know Frank Ralph is running again. He may be the number one car in the Senate. We all have our license plates based on our ranking. I started at 40. I'm at 18 now. Chances are I'll be in the single digits if I'm reelected in the 7th. So, you lose a lot of the old, which brings in a lot of the new. But a lot of the new is just like when I was here the first year. What in the hell is this place? And what am I doing right? And I feel like I'm doing everything wrong. So I think you'll see a lot, And then you have some new Senate seats. You have a lot of people crossing over from the House of Delegates who want to run. Chris Head's running in a new Senate seat. You've got Emmett Hanger, who's either going to run against Mark Obenshain. He's been there forever. Or maybe Chris Head. Or maybe retire. Who knows? You'll see a lot of that peel away, but then you'll have a lot of people that will, without that institutional knowledge, I wouldn't drive a car without a lot of lessons. Same can be said with politics, but they don't give you an opportunity to get your learner's permit here. So, that's what's going on. But, when we're talking about upcoming elections, what do you see? I mean, I always see we're going to be forever close in time, never with the 65, 35s anymore. But what are you seeing in the electorate coming up in 2024, especially at the state level, Dwayne?
2023.
2023.
Time flies, man.
It's
I mean,
a
it
long
is
day,
Virginia. We have an election every year, so we could talk about 2024.
We just legalized marijuana, man. That must be that. God, I'm in the haze, man.
Man, that was all I could smell on the streets of Richmond today. I've been here all day.
Seriously.
Going from one meeting to another. At least twice, I've just been walking down the street and, what's that unusual smell?
Yeah.
Well, you've had plenty of time to sober up since you've been here waiting, so you should be okay.
Well, I had some school superintendents and school board members coming in talking to me today, and they are talking about that since this marijuana thing, that they are seeing the incidence of marijuana and marijuana vaping at their schools
Really?
tripling and quadrupling. I mean, like out in Carroll County and places where they'd say, we used to have like 1, 2, or 3 incidents maybe. Now we're having like 15 a month. And because vaping's out there, and some parents are like, well, it's illegal. But it's not legal for anybody under 21, dude.
Bill, it's not legal on government property. Is that right?
I believe so, I guess, on government property. Are you asking, can you smoke a marijuana joint on government property?
Correct.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, because we were, like in South Hill, we're going to have to vote on this. If the county puts it on a referendum.
Dwayne, is that right? I don't think that bill was 331 pages long. Ridiculous.
Well, like we were saying, you couldn't smoke on the sidewalk.
You can't smoke in
alley
public.
or right away.
You're not supposed to be able to smoke in
on
public.
town property like a park or something like that. I don't think you were.
Yeah,
It's meant to do that.
Yeah, in public is what they try to prevent. So, but can you imagine though, how much of an effect what we're doing here in Richmond by legalizing all the vices is now how it trickles down into the communities, and they're saying, we're not talking about at-risk children or poor children doing this. We're talking about across the board, the economic spectrum of their student body, all participating in stuff like this, and that bothered me today. Really did. I mean, I just didn't know what to do about it. What do you do? You can't unring this bell, I think, in marijuana legalization, but we've got to put the guardrails in to make sure that, it bothers me that recreational sale is happening at these vape shops, or will happen at the vape shops, rather than being run by the ABC. The ABC keeps anyone under 21 from drinking pretty good. Why aren't we doing the same thing with marijuana? And why are we making cigarettes illegal for legalizing marijuana? That one still gets me.
Hi, folks. This is Hermie Sadler. Thanks for listening to our all-new podcast, Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I hope you are enjoying the show as much as Senator Stanley and I enjoy bringing it to you. Whether you're a family traveling together or a truck driver hauling freight up and down the highway, I hope you will take the time to visit one of our Sadler Travel Plaza locations in Virginia and North Carolina. Sadler Travel Plaza locations are licensed dealer locations for Pilot Travel Centers. And we also carry Shell Motiva petroleum products for our four-wheel friends. We pride ourselves on providing one-stop shopping for service, food, and entertainment. Our food options include Five Guys Burgers and Fries, Quiznos, Dairy Queen, Hermie Sadler's Faux Show Bar and Grill, Victory Lane Restaurant, Hunt Brothers Pizza, Dunkin' Donuts, and much, much more. Our locations include Sadler Travel Plaza in South Hill, located off I-85 at Exit 12. The Sadler Travel Plaza of Emporia, which is conveniently located on Exit 11D off I-95, and Sadler Travel Plaza on Highway 58 in Suffolk. We also have our North Carolina location, Sadler Travel Plaza in Dunn, North Carolina. That's Exit 75 off I-95. We appreciate all of our customers. And Bill and I appreciate you listening to Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic.
Hey, this is Bill Stanley, Hermie Sadler's sidekick on this podcast. When I'm not in Richmond at the Capitol or doing this podcast, my real job for the past 27 years is as a trial attorney with the Stanley Law Group. Here at the Stanley Law Group, we represent our clients in every courthouse in the Commonwealth. No problem is too small for us to solve. No case is too big for us to win. Whether it's criminal charges, traffic offenses, civil disputes, litigation matters of any sort, we handle it all. We make sure that we treat every client like family because they are to us. Your problem is our problem. Your success is our success because we hate to lose more than we love to win. And believe me, we win a lot. Don't believe me? Go ask Hermie. I'm his favorite lawyer, and he hates lawyers. So give us a call at 540-721-6028 and let us help you. Or visit our website at www.vastanleylawgroup.com. That's www.vastanleylawgroup.com. At the Stanley Law Group, we'll make sure we're the lawyers that you swear by and not at. Well, I mean, where do you think we are? We have certainly transformed Virginia in the last 5 or 6 General Assembly sessions. And it's, for me, if you come from conservative Southside, Southwest Virginia, it's kind of stark and kind of scary.
It's been a pretty dizzying transformation when you think about it that way.
Yeah. Dizzying indeed.
Yeah.
I just can't. I got tickled the other night.
Makes you hungry, dude.
Bill and I sometimes either talk or text, all times of the day and night, especially when he's bored at his condo late at night and all that. But I got home and, now I'm doing my job and campaigning, doing all that. So I get home and we have our little unwind period for, 15, 20 minutes. So I'm scrolling Facebook and I saw this guy who was apparently a friend of mine on Facebook, but I saw a review that he put on that he had visited the new casino in Portsmouth. And it's only been open, a couple weeks?
Yeah.
And I screenshotted it and sent it to Bill. But this guy, like the first day he went, when you would think, at least in the beginning, while the honeymoon phase was still going on, that, things would be spiffy and clean and extraordinary customer service and this and that and the other. But this guy made these comments about his first trip, and Bill may be pulling it up.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up
to look at it too. But this guy was saying, there's chicken tenders all over the broom, and here you go. This guy says, I won't call his name, but he says, my first impression of Rivers Casino Portsmouth wasn't all that great. First of all, he describes where he's waiting. It's 200 people waiting to get in, and somebody flies up and running at a high rate of speed and runs over a bunch of people at the front door, and that was scary, but maybe not funny. Okay, so number 2, his complaint is every urinal in the bathroom was filled with used joints and enough weed remnants lining the tops of the urinals that I could go into business for myself.
Wow.
And then he says, number 3, even though many, many hours at capacity, but the place was downright filthy. No trash cans outside to throw stuff away. So people just leave their trash and dinner, pizza boxes, and Royal Farms chicken at the door inside and out. The inside was bad as well, with what looked to be chicken tenders everywhere and general floor clutter. So, but I just got tickled with, people talk about we shouldn't have skill games at these convenience stores. They're just not, doesn't give a good look. They don't look, they're unseemly, unsightly. And then one weekend to the new casino in Portsmouth, and there's enough marijuana remnants.
Marijuana and chicken tenders.
Chicken tenders. So he did have the munchies.
So, yeah, but so if you're smoking the weed, what are the chicken tenders doing on the floor?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense, does it?
Your dad would have a fit if that was one of his operations. Woo! Oh, my goodness. Now, you talk about somebody pull glasses down on
now, you talking about somebody being mad.
Herman Sr., Herman Jr. Yeah.
You let one blade of grass grow up in the asphalt, he will bring you a bag of fertilizer and a bag of grass seed.
Now, so we're here on the thing that we talk about half the time because we filed that lawsuit. We we won 3 times. We've gummed up the works according to some of these people back here in the Capitol. But actually, we've demonstrated how we can be responsible and allow small businesses to engage in gaming through skill games and eliminate the illegal gaming that's going on and still protect this new emerging marketplace, which is dominated by casinos. What do you think about these legalization of casinos? We talked a little bit about weed. Sounds like you can go get some at a urinal at the Portsmouth Casino. Well, what about the change, the sea change? Virginia was totally against any kind of gambling whatsoever, and now we embrace it like a long lost friend.
Yeah, we're gonna have what, 5 of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bristol, Portsmouth, Richmond,
Danville. Any Danville?
Danville, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Petersburg will vote for one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And can it really sustain? I mean, can the casino industry sustain 5 casinos in Virginia? None of them near Northern Virginia where all the money is anyway.
I mean, that is not my area of expertise.
Well, sit back. It's me and Hermes.
Okay.
Hold my beer.
But I mean, think about the sea change just in policy. When I came here 13 sessions ago, I mean, if you brought up, and I know Louise Lucas was actually starting to bring up casinos, and she just wanted one for Portsmouth, and it would be laughed out of committee.
Yeah. I mean, Portsmouth and Petersburg, accepting. I mean, in Danville and Bristol, you're talking about casinos in some of the most conservative parts of the state.
Yeah.
And I forget what the vote was in both places, but it was very overwhelming.
Yeah. Oh, in terms of voting for casinos?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was close to 60%.
Yeah.
And yet, for us, I think in Richmond, we get told, and we've talked about this before in the podcast, when you represent Southside and Southwest Virginia, they pat you on the head and said, see what we did for you? When we're talking about, for us, economic revitalization, tech talent pipeline, modernizing schools, making sure our children have the best chance of, breaking the cycle of poverty or living the American dream, and they just go, here you go, here's a vice.
Yeah.
And that should help. It should make some hotels and perhaps a Cracker Barrel or 2 get built.
Yeah. I write a lot about economic development, and I do worry, that we confuse these casinos with economic development, or that, this is the end game.
Right.
The best argument I've heard in favor of one was from a councilman in Danville who said, we understand this is not the be-all to end-all, but it will generate enough revenue for us to be able to do these other things. Okay, I can understand that argument.
Sure.
But I would just caution, I don't live in either place, so I don't think it's my place to say, these are good or bad, and they're happening, so, it doesn't matter what I think anyway. But, I would caution, this should not be the end game. Don't think that we have solved every economic problem in those places by having a casino.
Let me ask you, we've had this ongoing battle, but really and truly, we're in small businesses, convenience stores, truck stops, restaurants, as are a lot of people across the Commonwealth of Virginia. My problem with the whole thing has always been not casinos and not gaming necessarily. It's been the fact that these casinos are, and successfully, I might add to this point, until we have fought back a little bit, are lobbying our General Assembly to a point where not only are they coming into Virginia, but they are trying to create the policy or the policies in which they will be governed by, and they are unfairly taking revenue opportunities and creating an unlevel playing field, and in my opinion, circumventing the free market system in the process. So whether or not you support casinos or not, or whatever, do you have an opinion on the I won't call it an argument, the debate on should casinos have a different set of rules when they come into Virginia than the small businesses that operate and have been operating for the longest of time when these casinos come to those areas?
Well, I guess as a longtime observer of Virginia politics, my reaction would be shocked, I tell you. I'm shocked.
I take that to be tongue-in-cheek.
Well, but it is quite a transformation for the Commonwealth. I mean, in my mind, it's a shorter period of time. And then once you open the door, I mean, everybody rushes in. And it's just changed the body politic. And I've said this again before on a podcast episode. My concern has always been, Dwayne, when big industry like that comes in, then they want to control it all. They really spread some influence around the General Assembly, if that's what you want to call it. and then they dominate the forum in terms of if any gambling bill comes before the legislature, it has to be filtered or approved by the casinos on high, rather than the legislature being in charge. And that to me is kind of disturbing. I mean, have you ever seen that in any other business or any other way here in Virginia?
Well, what about energy? I mean, the utilities.
Oh, right, Dominion. All right, AEP. Yeah.
I mean, isn't it like that for almost any industry?
Well, the big ones, I guess you're right, because Dominion and AEP dominate this General Assembly as well, don't they?
Yeah, insurance. I mean, insurance companies.
The railroad.
Well, not anymore.
I heard.
Not with my bill. My bill got passed today, by the way. We talked about the railroad bill last week's podcast episode. That bill, we modified it again to try to accommodate the railroads again, and it passed out, I think, 33 to 2 or 3, 33 to 3 in the General Assembly, on the floor of the General Assembly.
So that's
session.
so important to get broadband internet to every willing household.
It really is. And
all throughout the Commonwealth.
I heard the argument that today, as a matter of fact, Dwayne, that the railway is just too big. I mean, can you imagine with all the things we do that we have to sit down and worry about these crossings and approve these notices and these applications? I mean, do you know who we are? And my answer was, yeah, the rail company that left Roanoke and took like 5,000 jobs with it, right? I mean, that was devastating to us when they just up and picked up and left. And then they said, well, we're going to Norfolk. And they're out of Norfolk.
Now they're
too.
in Atlanta.
Yeah, they're totally in Atlanta. So how are they dictating policy that really can affect and change a child's life or a family's life, or bring industry and economic revitalization to our area when they didn't care enough to stay here? They took off for Atlanta. I mean, that to me is, again, the downside of when what you were just talking about, which is when these companies, when these industries come in, they dominate, but they don't care about Virginians. Do you think the casinos care about Virginians? I mean,
You could be talking about media companies too.
well, and we are going to talk about that because that is a big topic that I wanted to discuss with you. But then, when they leave, then they suck the oxygen out of the room. It demonstrates, I think, that they never gave a crap about us in the beginning. And that's probably the way it is all the way around with all these industries. But you don't want a people's government to be run by an inanimate corporation. So that has always been my concern. And so that's this about that.
It's a gift and a curse. We were talking about it earlier.
Yeah.
What were you talking about?
It's not for this show. But
Seriously?
It's a gift and a curse. Sometimes for some localities, a big boom or a big fish in the sea moves in.
Right.
You get the tail wagging the dog, and it can be very devastating. It's a gift and a curse.
I'm just personally have always believed, like, I give my dad all the credit for when my grandfather, and I say this before, but when my grandfather got killed, my dad was 30, and things were thrown in his lap, and he really had one delivery truck and one convenience store, or one little service station at the time. And my dad navigated and built and bought and, put it on the line and did all that. The free market system. My dad's always said, and I believe it in everything, competition makes everybody better. When you have to compete with the guy across the street, you keep your place cleaner, you keep your prices more competitive, you pay people more, you train them better. And so this whole thing of just coming in and anointing a new king in town so that they have more and have something that the government gives them that you don't have, I just think takes all that away. We could be talking about casinos versus small business. We could be talking about our race team. We could be talking about a political campaign. Mm-hmm. The fact that, I'm confident that whether or not I win this convention in the 17th, I'm confident that I'm making my opponent work harder.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and so competition, should be, and let people decide, and let the free market system work. So those are the things that, that bother me. And so if you just let this slide, then what's next? If you just sit back and say, well, I don't like this, but the casino gave me $30,000, if you let it go, what's next? I don't get it.
It leaves the door open. Once the door is open, it's open.
Yeah.
and it's really a bother. And Dwayne, you've seen, as we were talking about earlier, politics over the year, but you mentioned something earlier that was really important. I wanted to hit on it because I really want to pick your brain on the state of journalism and how it's posited with politics as well. But when I started, and I've said this like 9 times today, 13 sessions ago, we had regional reporters here 24 hours a day during session. We had Joe DeShiel, had his own cameraman. Heck, he stayed in the same hotel as I did. You had who was the gentleman in the Roanoke Times?
Michael Sluss.
Michael Sluss. You had Patrick Wilson. You had Michael March. You had Dave Ress. You had a cadre of Commonwealth, Capitol reporters, and suddenly they're not there anymore. And suddenly, instead of an independent newspaper, it's all being corporatized, even right down to the local periodicals now. I mean, what has happened in the news industry?
Well, if I were giving a speech, and you've now invited me to get up on my soapbox and give my standard stump speech, here's where I would pull out my cell phone and wave it around and say, this is what has happened. That every day people vote in the marketplace that they prefer to consume their news digitally rather than on print. Now, that shouldn't matter because every newspaper's got a website. But historically, newspapers are supported by advertising. 85% of newspaper revenue historically came from advertising. Most of that was local retail advertising. That advertising is now being vacuumed up by Facebook and Google. So over the past, since 2006, newspaper revenue nationally today is 20% of what it was in 2006. It has dropped that much.
Wow.
That money is all gone to Facebook and Google and other social media sites.
TikTok.
So like Facebook and Google are like the Walmarts to the small
Yes.
mom and pop stores
Yes,
in the areas.
exactly. So, it's just basic economics. If your revenue goes down, your expenses have to go down. Well, the main expense of the news business is people. So, I work for the Roanoke Times. When I started with the Roanoke Times, the paper had a full-time reporter in the state capitol year-round. When the General Assembly was in session, we sent down other people. I remember at one point there were 4 people from the Roanoke Times here covering the General Assembly session. Now it's 0.
Zero. Not one.
Not one.
And you guys used to load up in the tables in front of the dais on the Senate, and it would be packed. And then the rest of you'd be sitting up in the gallery with the TV media, and you'd be always outside the door waiting on us.
Yeah.
It's crickets
Yeah.
now.
And that is not unusual. Same thing with every newspaper in the state. The Norfolk paper used to have 3 to 4 people here. I don't think they have anyone.
Julian Walker was one.
Yeah. So it is just completely shrunk.
Only because of that advertising.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's it.
I mean, Joe DeShiel, Channel 7 WDBJ, carries his own camera and has to set up everything. He used to have a cameraman here.
Yeah. TV is affected by the same thing, because they are not a physical format, you don't see it quite as dramatically. But TV has experienced the same thing. I mean, their ad revenues have gone to, Facebook and Google and TikTok and, wherever else too. What is happening, it's like the end. My analogy is the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are doing great. One day there's this bright light up in the sky. Dinosaurs look up and say, oh, what's that? And then they go back to munching. They don't realize their whole world is about to change. And suddenly, dinosaurs are gone and mammals, spring up and, fill that niche in the ecosystem. Same thing is happening in the news business. Newspapers in print are dying all across the country for that very reason. The internet was the bright light through the sky. And they have, for the most part, failed to adapt. In their place, though, we are now seeing the rise of nonprofit news sites like ours. This is my sales pitch for us, cardinalnews.org. We are not unusual. When we launched in September 2021, there were 300 nonprofit news sites around the country. Half of those had started in the previous 2 years. I mean, the growth is rapid and exponential. Now it's over 400, moving on to 500. And that's measured by the ones who belong to a trade association. And there are lots of others, out there who aren't part of, those trade associations. So I used to be concerned about, sort of the death of democracy and that kind of thing.
Right.
I'm not right now because, newspapers are, going to go away.
So you think they'll totally go away? You think we will see the end of the print newspaper?
I think
in our lifetime.
Yes, with a couple asterisks. Yeah, your small weekly newspaper, may survive. Your basic daily newspaper,
Your Franklin News Post, your Martinsville Bulletins, maybe, or maybe.
The dailies. At some point the economics just don't support print.
I mean, they're not even printing on site anymore. They're sending it out to be printed.
But the analogy is the music business. Yeah, we used to get our music, on vinyl records or 8-track tapes, and then CDs. Now it's all streaming. The interest in music has not gone away; just the delivery mechanism has. Same way with news. The interest in news has not gone away. The delivery mechanism is changing, and if you're a company that is wedded to an unpopular format, the free market will take care of that.
So I got a question, and I know Shep, you want to get in here too, but so if the print news business is dying,
Yeah.
why are these large companies like Berkshire Hathaway and other media, conglomerates, why are they buying those newspapers up? Because then what you see is they kind of eliminate the newsroom. They consolidate how the news source is, and you're getting not an independent local news source. You're getting just the company's determination of what an article should be, and then it appears in 4 or 5 of the newspapers that they own throughout Virginia.
It's called controlling the narrative.
Isn't that the scary part?
I don't think it's controlling the narrative. I think it's making money. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but in hindsight, when Warren Buffett bought up newspapers, it was a real estate play.
What?
Because most newspapers are in grand old buildings downtown.
Oh,
So he
big
bought
factories for the print shop kind of area.
Yes. So he bought up newspapers, put no investment in them.
Right.
Instead, cut expenses, cut people, basically squeeze the last dimes out of a dying industry, which is his specialty. Then sold the husk of the news business, but held on to all the property. So in Roanoke, when Warren Buffett sold the Roanoke Times to Lee Enterprises, he held on to the building
Oh, really?
and flipped that at a nice price. Same thing in other cities.
Wow.
So he's making money 2 ways
So why are they buying the weekly periodicals in the smaller markets?
because they're just all part of the same. I mean, when they bought, when Warren Buffett bought up, the papers in Virginia, I mean, it was all just sort of part of the package.
Yeah.
And then when, he sold to Lee Enterprises, again, it was all part
And
of
what
the
is
package.
Lee Enterprises? Is that a local state?
No, it's an Iowa-based media company.
And what's their long-range plan? I mean, what's their goal? Are they, because it sounds like Warren Buffett got all the goodies. So what are they
He
standing
did. Well, I don't work there anymore, so I can't speak for them. But they at least are a media company. They are trying, and this is not unusual. They're trying to hold on to print for as long as they can because it does still make some money for them. But then there's a race to get online because someday print is going to go away and all you're going to have is online. So what you see are basically zombie newspapers. I mean, I don't mean to criticize my former employer. I'm just describing a fact. If you look at the Lee Enterprises papers in Virginia, which would be Richmond, Fredericksburg, Culpeper, Charlottesville, Waynesboro, Roanoke, Lynchburg, Danville, Martinsville, Bristol, plus a bunch of weeklies, they pretty much all look the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've all got the same format and the same stories.
Yes. Same reporter. I mean, like a regional reporter rather than a local.
So some of these, have almost no staff, but like I said, they're sort of a zombie paper because they got the historical masthead.
You got customers being regional.
Okay. But, I mean, the cost of the newspaper, like Roanoke Times was like for a weekday was like $1.50 or something, and luckily my face was on the front, so I bought 10 copies, so I made them a little money that day. But I was with a Beagle.
I mean, and
get
that's the other way they are trying to still make money on print is by jacking up the price for the loyal subscribers who are still with them. Yeah, but unfortunately, you hit a price point,
Right.
and people bail out.
Did you give those papers to everyone that showed up for your launch party?
No.
Because those numbers are pretty close.
Actually, I probably bought 20 copies, not 10. And I keep them, and people ask for them. Actually, people in the Beagle world want copies of those things. Sure. Want me to autograph them, so I do that. But it's it was a big, huge thing to get your picture on the paper of the Roanoke Times. I remember.
Like the cover of the Rolling Stone.
What do we say about
I mean, when I was running
humble people and no egos?
No
and
egos.
look, oh right, Hermie, you didn't like when Sports Speed Week had you, on the front of the cover.
I was one of the top 50 best looking things in the People magazine.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
50 most hot men or
The
something?
most beautiful people of NASCAR.
Oh, seriously?
The top 50. I got,
When was that?
You got a copy of that?
Wait a minute.
How many copies
When
you
was
got of
that?
that?
one somewhere.
I bet you got more than one.
I bet I do not.
Well, you have a museum.
I
You
bet
and Elliot.
Angie's got one.
Oh, she looks at it every night. But I was maybe in early 2000s, one of the top. I was just gone to work full time for Speed as a reporter, and I was one of the most 50 most beautiful people in NASCAR. Beautiful.
Nothing.
Inside and out.
Not sexy. Beautiful.
Beautiful. Inside and out.
Nothing changes. Well, so, down where I'm from, you'd love if wow, look, I made it in the Roanoke Times. And like my first year when I was running against a big incumbent who had been there for 20 some odd years, Roscoe Reynolds, a good guy, but a Democrat. And I was running against him. Well, the Roanoke Times just seemed to be against me. You've got one writer that I'm not going to say his name, but he loves to hate me. He loves to talk about
Well, you didn't want
Gosh,
their endorsement anyway.
crap about me. Well, so this is the funny part.
See?
But that was back in the day when they had editorial boards. Now there's no editorial board because Lee Enterprises a few weeks ago laid off every opinion writer in the state except for one in Richmond.
You're kidding me.
No.
Who'd they leave? Williams?
I don't know his name.
Okay. But so when I moved, I had to move in the new district. So I rented to buy a farm, lease purchase. And I was living there. But this guy named Ralph Smith moved into my district. He was the old mayor of Roanoke City. And supposedly the Roanoke Times was doing this investigative reporting to see if we really lived in our, in the district. And they went to the residence that Ralph Smith was supposedly had listed as his address. And they peered through the windows. And they looked through the trash cans. And this reporter's telling me this. And I said, well, what did you find? And they said, well, we didn't see anything in the windows, but in the trash can, there was no trash except for one old copy of the Roanoke Times. And I said, aha, Ralph Smith would never read the Roanoke Times. That's proof he doesn't live there. And they said, well, we're coming to your farm. And I said, well, if you'd like to call ahead, and then, I'll give you a tour, you can come out. And I think it was Mason. I can't remember who the reporter was. But I knew the guy, and it was kind of a joke. And I said, but if I see you lurking around my property and with your head in my trash can, you're going to get a snoot full of my Glock. And it was a joke. Front page above the fold,
Threat.
Roanoke Times, Senator threatens Roanoke Times reporter with gun. And and Mike Sluss was up here, and it was another reporter. It was Mason Adams. Yeah. And I loved him. We had a court case when I had a court case. I don't know if you remember this. It was a band.
Yes.
That was mooning. That was actually, they were farting on each other. And one guy pulled his pants down and put it in the air conditioning so it would go back in the back of the van. And there was this kind of really wound up veteran who was reporting. This was, kind of during the Iraq War. And he was reporting, and he sees this guy in his naked butt cheeks in the window of this van. And he chases the van down to Radford. You remember that? And has the police arrest the whole band right before they're going on for the concert at Radford University for indecent exposure. Mason Adams covers the story. I almost got thrown. The judge was not happy when I said, I had my guy stand up. I was representing the whole band. I said, can you tell me which butt you saw? and the judge says, if you think they're going to pull down their pants right now, let me tell you that's something different. So it was an acquittal, and he wrote a really cheeky story about it. It didn't mean to do that.
Yes, you did.
So I thought, I could joke with Mason. And he writes this thing and starts this editorial board that the one guy that likes to write his smarmy articles just keep coming out, and what a bad guy Stanley is. And I noticed. But what we noticed is I started going up in the polls. Is that actually it was working to my advantage to have them attack me. And Sluss called down and says, you may want to stop because it's only going to help him. Because it's a strong 2A district, a Second Amendment district. And Mike was always loved and respected him, and he was always so accurate. And so that was there. So then they called me up, long story short. I know I've dragged on this for too long. But long story short, I get a call from the Roanoke Times editorial board. They say, we want you to come down, and we're going to interview you. To see if we're going to endorse you or Roscoe Reynolds. And I said, I'm not coming down. In fact, I'm going to ask you, please endorse Roscoe Reynolds. I need you to endorse Roscoe Reynolds. It's going to help me. And I ended up winning the race by 644 seats in an upset. But y'all, and your editorial board ended up not endorsing anybody in that race. But we went back and forth. And, at one moment, if you're a young politician, you think to yourself, my God, I've ruined it. I was just joking around, and I've ruined it for everybody. The only other time I got in the Roanoke Times was in a court case. I said that my court case was set for December 7th, and I said I was going to drop a bomb in the courtroom on Pearl Harbor Day, and you guys put it on the front page. And that was the only other stupid thing. After that, I've learned to keep my mouth semi-shut and only do bad things, say bad things here. So
You've probably heard the story about the House race in Franklin County, and I forget whether it was the late 80s or early 90s. Where a Roanoke Times endorsement made the difference, but the other way.
No. What happened there?
This was when Willard Finney,
Yeah.
conservative Democrat,
Yes.
was the incumbent. The Republican candidate was a young fellow named Ken Rush.
Okay.
Roanoke Times endorsed Rush as voice of a new generation, so forth and so on. Finney bought full-page ads in the weekly paper in Franklin County to basically say, what did Rush, promise the Roanoke Times? And basically use that Roanoke Times endorsement against him. And Rush was probably going to win until he got endorsed, and he did not win.
Yeah, we made copies of the Snoot Full of Glock article and spread them around to especially our Second Amendment people, and they were very supportive. But so in our last segment here, let's talk about you've talked about what is happening now in the digital age with the news. Let's talk about Cardinal news. You're wearing the Cardinal tie.
I am.
Look at you. You've talked about this new emerging kind of piece of the news marketplace. What is it, and what do you see for the future of that?
Sure. Well, we are a nonprofit online news site covering the western third of Virginia.
Which usually gets no coverage from anybody.
Yes. That is our...
That's really good what you're doing.
That's what we're here for. Financially, it's basically public broadcasting. We rely completely on donations. We have no paywall. We sell no advertising.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Would you like to give us some money?
Absolutely. Make a donation. It's important.
We are... well, let me get around to that. We started in September 21 with 2 reporters. Our mission was not to compete with the existing media, but to fill the gaps of what they're not doing. So, we were told that the Roanoke Times, when I was still there, that there would no longer be any capacity for in-depth reporting. So our mission was to do in-depth reporting, and because they abolished their political beat. Our first 2 reporters were a reporter in Richmond. So we're the only news organization west of Richmond with a full-time reporter in the state capital year-round.
Marcus Schmidt?
That's Marcus Schmidt.
Really
and I want to say real quick, Marcus, came down and covered parts of our litigation in the courts and all that. Did a really good job of being fair and open and honest about that. But the most refreshing thing is he took the time one day to come to Emporia. We sat down and he got to talk to me. We met. He found out not just about the lawsuit, but about my family and why I was so passionate about sticking up for what we thought was right and all that. And you see so many people these days that call themselves journalists just retweeting things or copy and paste from somebody's Facebook page or whatever. So it was really refreshing for me to have somebody get in the car, come to Emporia, and not only want to talk about the litigation or the subject matter of the interview, but hey, what is it about your family or your business that really brought you to be this passionate about it. And so that's a lost art in that kind of coverage today. So I want to commend you and your team for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we started with 2 reporters, Marcus in Richmond and a business reporter in Roanoke. We are now up to 5 reporters. We have a 6th coming on board in a few weeks.
And these are full-time jobs.
These are full-time. All paid for, by the way. We're very much fiscal conservatives. We don't hire anybody until we have a guaranteed 3-year funding stream for each position.
So then do you go out and like seek a donation for somebody maybe to pay, you know, in the same way that some people pay for a chair in a college? I mean, do you find a single source, or you just say, okay, we need to raise X amount of dollars to get this this guy or this woman?
It has varied from position to position. You know, some have had a single donor, some have been, you know, a whole bunch of donors. You know, and we tell donors, you know, give us money, but you're not going to have any influence. Yeah, the big donors have never asked for a thing. You know, it's the small donors we hear from. Can you change the font size? Yeah.
What's a big donor? What? Not a name, but what does that equate to being a big donor?
$100,000 a year.
Wow.
And all of our donors are listed on our website. We are
SLG.
No.
That's why we don't have heat.
Right. Just be happy you put the heater on a little bit. So you're actually like raising money in a campaign almost.
Yeah, we're like grubby politicians now.
Yeah, welcome aboard.
Yeah, yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, yeah. Every politician I know now makes fun of me for that.
And you mean
Well, now I will, because now I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
you mean like people like give you money, the smaller donations, and then they ask you for something in return, like to change the font?
That was an actual request from someone, you know, who I think probably gave $25.
Would you say, well, that comes with the $50 level? You get
He's just a little short.
Font choices are at this level.
for a small fee,
Right.
we'll answer the phone.
Upcharge.
So, okay, so you have donors, and you have some pretty loyal donors, I guess, right? They understand the importance of having actually a news outlet that is exclusively focusing on an area that's underreported. I mean, I think that's one of the big things that makes Cardinal News so important to everybody that lives here.
When we first started, going around to raise money, we had never raised money before. We're not fundraisers. We still don't have a professional fundraiser. You know, we've learned.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
You do this on your own?
yeah.
Wow.
Not me. Our executive director is
Right.
the one doing the asking, but she's a former reporter. You know.
And it's not easy in today's
Yeah.
marketplace to do this.
But no one ever asked us, why are you doing this? Everyone understood why we were doing this. Their questions were, how?
Right.
Well, the how is easy. Give us money.
Right. But the product is, you do it, 5 days a week? Looks like you take your weekends off. I can tell you when I read vpap.org, and I'm sure you read it every morning too, I go to the bottom to see if there's a Yancey column, because it's going to take a little more mind power to read. And so I click on it first so I can get to it. And then, but you focus on really some historical topics to try to relate our area to the rest of Virginia as well. And you do it so very, very well in how you articulate it.
Well, you really need to sign up for our daily newsletter.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I'm not signed up for you.
No, it's free.
Okay.
It's free.
That's $25.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get on one of these lists here if he keeps talking to me. So what do you see for the future? I mean, it sounds like Cardinal News is doing great. You've upped the number of reporters. And ladies and gentlemen, and we have a whole bunch of listeners, go to cardinalnews.org and cardinalnews.org and read. And especially your timeless pieces about the region or about issues in the region really give you a great education, but I think really put Southwest and Southside Virginia in the proper light that it should be. And I commend you for that. You've got to go read what they have there. It's news, it's opinion. It's just a factual history on some things, but really, really incredible storytelling, finally returning to journalism.
So in a year, we will have more reporters. We're fundraising now for 3 additional positions. We're part of the way toward each of them. That would take us up to 9 reporters.
Which is more than most newspaper places have.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
I mean, Michael Martz, I love Michael Martz to death. He lives in Maryland. He doesn't even come down here, and he reports on the Richmond, in the state capitol. And he never he steps foot here maybe once in a while.
Yeah.
Do y'all have an office building, or do people work from home, or how does that work?
We are all virtual.
Virtual, yeah.
So we pay no landlords. We are ruthless about keeping expenses low. So yeah,
And how do people access y'all's website if they want to get involved or donate money? How do they go about doing that?
cardinalnews.org. We have no paywall. You can go there for free.
Yeah.
And yeah, click the button to sign up for the free newsletter, or click the button to give us money.
There's two different buttons, or it's the same button?
Two different buttons.
Okay. All right. And
But the reality is, we have a very high conversion rate. Probably about 24% of our newsletter subscribers wind up giving us money.
Really?
So
That's pretty good.
Are you a subscriber, Bill?
No, he just told me about the newsletter, but I go on there every day. I check it out every day.
so he's a freeloader, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
I was trying to get to
Isn't
that.
it kind of weird? Now wait a minute. Isn't it kind of weird
I
if a
was
politician
building that
gives money, even though in my private life, my law firm gives money to a news organization? Don't some people think that, well, I'm just buying ink? Because, that came
Not
up
when we
with-
criticize you afterwards.
Or no
and,
ink.
and you have done a very good job of that. You've been very good with school modernization, but also too, but just recently with the Ren Williams Marie March kerfuffle, where Marie accused him of assault and battery. They went to court. He was acquitted. Well, your organization was reporting on some of the other things that were going on in Delegate March's life at the time that I think were newsworthy. And they just turned around and said, well, it's because Ren Williams' family gives you money. I mean, how do you respond to that?
Well, I think he gives like $25.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're that cheap? You're that easy? Wait a second. I need to hey, loan me $25. Shep, give me some money.
I tell you, we do 10, 10, and 10, and we got 30. We can get all kinds of
We'll get a
slanted
free
coverage.
mug.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing people need to remember about journalists is, it's like laying down with the tiger. The tiger may seem friendly at the time, but, one false move and the tiger will bite your head off.
I would think some people would actually look at it. I'm glad it doesn't seem like y'all do, but it seems like maybe if somebody gave you money, you might even be harder on those people in some cases to prevent that.
Yeah. So I'll donate money, but my name will be Inigo Montoya, something like that. So as we close out this great
No,
episode.
I don't want to go yet. I don't want to go yet.
Oh, you ready? You want to keep going?
I want to do like you do. Last time I had somewhere to be, I ended up having to walk out and let y'all finish the show together. I know you've got a dinner to go to, so I've got many, many, many more questions. Many, many,
well,
many.
You
guys-
guys have the same one to go to.
Yeah. Really? Where are you going?
The Southwest Virginia reception.
I'm gonna make a dump stop there, but I've got to go. We do these appreciation dinners
Yeah.
so our caucus leadership goes and does these dinners where we sit with those that have been very nice and supportive of our caucus, and we talk about the session. And they invite certain senators to come along, and so this is one where
You got
What
invited
time
to
is-
that?
Yeah, what time is this?
Somebody wanted me to go to something.
What time is this?
It's 6.
At 6.
Yeah. What time is it?
You're a little late.
606.
You're a little late.
Well, so here's what I want. Okay, so and this has been great. And everybody go to cardinalnews.org. That's cardinalnews.org, and really get a fresh take on the news today in Southside and Southwest Virginia. But Dwayne, you've been in politics forever. I mean, next time we'll come back and we'll tell you've got some heck of stories that you've told me over the years. You're looking at a first-year candidate, Hermie Sadler. How should what advice would you give Hermie Sadler, 17?
My advice is give him $25, and he'll take care of the rest.
We're going to see if Hermie can be one of the top 50 most beautiful Virginia politicians.
Oh, yeah.
If he make it that list, we got
That'll be worth 50.
So what kind of advice would you give him in terms of handling the media, handling himself, the things you've seen that works in politics, things that have not worked in politics?
I think it goes back
Maybe
to
you
what
ought
you
to listen to this too, Bill.
I'm listening.
Yeah, I'm gonna go
just
back-
telling him I'm going to be a little late here. I'm
Yeah,
texting.
I'm going to go back to what the senator said early on. Treat journalists like people. Be honest with them. They're going to ask you things you don't like.
Yeah.
But being accessible, and if you think they're wrong, tell them they're wrong. But people can disagree in an agreeable kind of way.
You would certainly think so.
Yeah,
That's a lost art these days.
And do you think, Hermie, do you think your experience in the news, as being a reporter, even a sports reporter, which is not really a reporter, but do you think that gives you experience? It's a joke, man. Chill.
Do I think what?
Do you think that kind of gives you a leg up on knowing what to do? Because you went on Fox News, and maybe we'll play it here next week. And you did a wonderful job. I mean, I would have probably been scared, poopless, but you did pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, having done media, in my Fox Sports days, when I was either doing the shows in the studio or even on pit road, there's no tape, there's no delay. When the red light comes on, I'm on.
Yeah.
And so there's no do-overs and those kind of things. So I think some of that being able to, stay calm and not get, tied up when, because I had no idea on that Fox News hit. It was live.
Yeah. They didn't tell you what the questions were.
They did not. I had no idea what the questions were going to be. And so and plus on those kind of cameras, at least when I was doing my NASCAR part, when I was commentating, there was like a jerk camera or a screen one of the people would hold around. I could actually see the broadcast from pit road. So when I was calling a pit stop, I could look at the pit stop while it was happening in my monitor in case I was calling a pit stop that may be happening down pit road or something like that. Yesterday, I was just looking into a camera.
Yeah.
I couldn't see John or Sandra. I couldn't see anybody. I didn't, it was just, all I had was the little earbud and them talking to me in my ear. So it was a little bit different, but I just think talking about politics that you're passionate about or trying to help Virginians is certainly, I haven't done that as long as I did talking about racing, but I do think having to talk live on national TV to a national TV audience in a live situation with no delay or anything like that, I think certainly is a benefit.
Yeah,
I think certainly is a benefit. Yeah. But more importantly, having, to your point earlier, name recognition from a network like Fox that I worked for 17 years, for them to want to reach out and talk to a first-time candidate in a state Senate race and give it national exposure, really almost a year before the actual election, I think is that should be good for all of Virginia politics.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And they gave you 3 minutes and 39 seconds.
And plus they did I'm not sure what they call it in Fox News parts, but back in the day, like when I was working at Fox Sports, when we were getting ready to come back and talk about to somebody in the next segment, going to break, we would do like a little funny something with the person. So they did that with me too back. I'm not sure what Fox News calls, but we used to call it a cluster buster. So they used to say, okay, Hermie, get ready. We're going to do a cluster buster, which would be maybe something where we went to break, and then in between commercials or while the commercials were playing, they would come back to us live for about 10 seconds, and we would do something funny or just be talking or whatever, then go right back to break again. They did that during the process as well. So, but it's I'm not sure you ever get used to talking to, I'm not going to say millions, but hundreds of thousands of people at one time on a TV camera. But I think all the years I did that certainly is a help.
That'd have been The Rock. Millions. And millions.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, we're going to have to wrap it up because I'm already late.
So,
Dwayne's
Bill, what do you think?
Did you watch the Royal Rumble Saturday night?
Well, here I'm going to be Hermie. Well, you can keep talking. I've got to go to this place. I'm leaving. So if you guys want to continue to talk, I got to go do this.
Actually, I need to go too because tonight is our volunteer night for my
that's right.
campaign group where we're volunteers, write postcards and make phone calls and do all that. So I do want to make it back to Emporia at least in time enough to thank everybody.
Now, give a plug to Cardinal News. It's a great organization. It's a great website. Keeps you up to date on Virginia politics and regional matters that matter most to you. Dwayne Yancey, give us a plug on how everybody can get there, donate, and read.
Go to cardinalnews.org, sign up for our newsletter, give money if you're inclined. We've built the largest online-only newsroom in the state.
Wow. Look at you.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed. And I'll give money under an assumed name. Can you anonymously donate?
No. We've turned down anonymous money.
Really? I'm just
well,
trying.
you could launder money to Shep, and Shep could funnel money to. Oh, yeah, y'all can do that.
I'm not encouraging that at all.
No.
Dwayne, can't you figure out how to do that?
100% transparent.
Okay. Yeah. So ill-gotten gains are not welcome
No.
either. Oh, all right. What about Bitcoin?
We have not gotten into the Bitcoin.
Not be
business.
okay.
No.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you donate to Cardinal News, cardinalnews.org, and make sure you go visit and read Dwayne Yancey's wonderful prose in his views on life, and he mixes history with current events and politics, and it's really something to behold. I need to go see one of your short plays. Now, the other thing that you guys don't know, we didn't get to talk about tonight, is he is quite a playwright. He does short plays that are put on all over the United States. And so you can always go see those on Facebook at your Facebook page. But
And I've got one in Lynchburg in June.
okay,
It's a long play, actually.
oh, it is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, put me down. I'm there.
Okay.
Okay, I'm coming.
Yeah, it'll be at Renaissance Theater in June.
And what's the name of the play?
Revenge of the Fairy Queen.
Revenge of the. This sounds right up my alley.
It's my.
Yes, it does.
It is my unauthorized sequel to Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream.
Oh, there you go. I'm an English major. I'll come to that. That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, count me in.
Okay.
Gentlemen, we're going to
Herbie,
go on a
quick
road
question
trip.
for you. What do you think about the Super Bowl match that's coming up?
They're not going
I want to know about when is he going to invite Dwayne to drive the race car? We hadn't done that
Oh,
yet.
I was going to close with that. I had written it down, but you know, we run an open wheel modified touring series. We've got Bobby Labonte and Ryan Newman running
Dwayne,
for us.
Mr.
We
Yancey.
need a Dwayne Yancey. You ready to drive the car? Why don't you come out to one of our
What
races?
kind of insurance do you have?
Insurance.
In racing,
What's that?
we'll have several
called a
several
helmet.
waivers and documents you'll need to
Yeah,
sign.
that's what I'm afraid of.
You got to find your own fire suit. What are you talking about? Insurance. Well, come out and we're doing a lot of fun things. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
That was a lot of
Glad to
fun.
be here.
So we're
And,
not going to talk about the Super Bowl.
You guys can sit here and talk about the Super Bowl all you want. You just need to drop that chip off so I can download and edit this thing tonight so I can get out this week. But, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Virginia State Center Stop Chef. So, Dwayne, every time they got to go, I like delay and I never stop. I'm just continuing.
You just about
Yeah, but-
put Senator Reeves's comms director into a tizzy.
in our coma. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
I
I
always keep talking near the end. When we're supposed to
what
wrap
he's
up. We
doing
never do. I end up talking, and he walked out one time and just said, "It's on you." But, ladies and gentlemen, another great
And then
episode.
when I did that, they decided to maybe have their own show. And what would it be like with just
Yeah, we
the
went
senator and
Shep and the
Shep
senator.
Balls?
We went on
It
for
was
15
funny.
minutes.
It was funny.
that
That
was-
was actually in South Hill.
That was. And he.
No, we were-
No, you were at his office.
No, you were at my
Yeah.
office.
We just.
And I
kept
walked
going.
out of my own
Yeah,
office.
because you had to come. Yeah,
We were
I
not
do
on board.
remember that.
And how's Boyd Chevrolet Dodge Ram, whatever?
Oh, it's doing great.
Yeah.
Having a ball.
Tell Brandon we
had
all
a
said
great
hi.
January, ready to kick off February.
Good. Thank you again, Dwayne
Okay,
Yancey.
thank you.
He is a legend in the newspaper business, a legend in the editorial business, and now he runs cardinalnews.org, a not-for-profit place where you can find
So what's
everything.
the rest of your week look like, Bill?
It looks busy. It looks busy.
You know, I used to get return text and phone calls. Now I don't get it. Do you get any? Well, you're still getting communication.
it's the
I get
sil-
zero communication.
It's the silly season, okay? This is where, look, I didn't get out of a committee until, and that was early. I mean, they're going to be going on until 6 or 7. Tomorrow's.
When do you want us to talk to you about our freebies? Like Vince Welch got a speeding ticket I need help with. And
I'll take care of that. Just send it to me. But we've got busy stuff.
Have you
coming.
even read what I sent to you?
No, not at all. I gave up because you kept. It's just like.
Oh, you got
it's like I was a
inundated.
waitress at a diner, and I'll have the sausage, and then you come back again. I'll have some pancakes, and then we kept asking me stuff, and I just keep.
he done took his headphones
Yeah,
off.
Dwayne's done. Dwayne, lead us out of here. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening to another episode of Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley. I'm leaning right the hell out of here.
And I'm turning left right the hell out of here. I'm Hermie Sadler, and we also have
Shep Mouse.
Are you going to pay my parking today?
Uh,
Do I get a reimbursement?
Sure, put it in to HR, and we'll see if we can't get that back to you at SLG Consulting.
Mr. Yancey. Nice to meet you, and appreciate all you do.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Enjoy the reception, Southwest Chamber reception. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll talk to you next week. We're probably going to have to book some guys this weekend, so to double up a little bit because we got a lot of topics we got to cover.
Who you
as we
got in
get
the
the
Super
General
Bowl?
Assembly done. Huh?
Who you got in the Super Bowl?
I hate both teams. That's one I don't even care.
Did you watch this?
But
Okay.
the Clash is this Sunday, so maybe you come up and let's watch the Clash.
Let's do that.
Okay, gentlemen, another one in the books. I'm serious. I'm gonna hit this red button right now. We'll say it one more time. I'm Virginia State Senator. Yeah, there goes Dwayne Yancey.
Later, Dwayne.
Yeah, play him out, band. All right, I'll call you. I'm Virginia State Senator Bill
He
Stanley.
said,
I'm gonna try this
y'all
again.
ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here.
He's finally gotten cold.
Yeah. So I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Staley, and I'm leaning right.
I'm Hermie Sadler, and I'm turning left. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
God bless you all.